Welcome to Tech World. My name is Vanessa Vallely, and I'm delighted to welcome Channa from Accenture and Thorne from Can to learn how they are collectively tackling the tech skills gap and inspiring the next generation. Their joint Regenerative AI programme aims to help some of the 8.5 million adults that are lacking basic digital skills across the UK. Over 3 years, they will collectively empower over 1 million people from socioeconomically disadvantaged communities by giving them access to devices, data, and digital skills, including AI literacy. So welcome, both of you.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you. Thanks for having us,
Vanessa. Lovely to have you with me. I'm so excited to hear about this programme. But before we get going, let's have a little bit of an introduction on you and your background, and then we'll lead into it. So I'm going to start off with Dow. Dow, tell me a little bit about you.
Sure. Thanks, Vanessa, for having me, and good to see you, Claire. So a little bit about myself. I started working at Accenture and started my career in tech about 17 years ago, and have built my career in tech delivery, mostly with financial services clients. But rewind about 20 years ago, I was actually at uni doing a degree in French and Italian literature, mostly like medieval literature. So completely different to tech delivery, financial services and banking, which is where I ended up cutting my teeth. So I had a very kind of a different way of coming into the tech world. And one of the things I really loved about the work I did in large scale complex tech delivery was really straddling the worlds of the deep tech delivery and the business and operations side. And I ended up being a bit of a translation between those two worlds, because you actually don't need to be a coder or a deep technical solution architect to work in tech. There are so many different types of role that you can have. And I found that maybe my arts and humanities background really helped me with straddling those two worlds and doing that. So for as long as I did. Most recently, though, I've had the privilege and the honour to take on the corporate citizenship portfolio for UK and Ireland. So I oversee all of the social impact work that Accenture does in communities across UK and Ireland, and that is how I met Claire and work with Can on the great social impact work we do there.
Fantastic. What a role. I'm so glad you mentioned that you don't have to have deep tech to work in tech, and often we underestimate the power of those translation roles that sit in the middle of two departments that kind of aid and make things work. So fantastic. Claire, tell me a little bit about you.
Sure, thanks, Vanessa. So I have two roles. I currently jointly lead Can, which is a tech skills and social mobility charity in the UK, which we'll be talking about today. And then I have another role. So Can is very much my passion. And then I have another role, which is much more like my background, which is an organisation called Deep Science Ventures. And we're a venture studio, and we build deep tech or science companies in-house from scratch. So organisations like Mission Zero that won the X Prize, etc. And although they look very different on paper, actually Can and Deep Science Ventures, the two roles, really it's all about inclusive science and technology talent and talent pathways. My background is in UK universities in the senior leadership teams doing innovation strategy work, so research commercialisation, spin out startups, etc. And then my personal pathway, how I got here, is really a STEM pathway. So I did physics undergrad and postgrad, and my PhD was underground in a working salt and potash mine in North Yorkshire, a kilometre underground, looking to try and detect dark matter. So I suppose, to Dow's point, a really convoluted path. And, I never thought that I'd be co-leading a charity around technology skills and careers inspiration, but also doing the work that I do or have done with universities and now do with Deep Science Ventures. So, yeah, I think for me, there was a real lack of professional role models that showed me a path. And so I've sort of tried to find those throughout my career, and hence it's been quite convoluted.
Fantastic. But also, again, another thing around a portfolio career, right? So you can have, you know, the day job that lights your passions and things like that. And then you can also kind of give back and help other people, which TechSheCan does in droves. So Dow, coming back to you, explain to me what the regenerative AI program is and what you're hoping to achieve in terms of impact.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll give a bit of background as to where the program came from, why we're doing it. So we've invested globally. Accenture's invested globally in Gen AI, something to the tune of about $3 billion globally. And we see Gen AI not just as the evolution, the next evolution for tech and business, but also for everyday life and for the individual. But as we're kind of going through various research initiatives and investment initiatives, we identified a risk that those that are already disadvantaged, a risk being put at an even further disadvantage with the advent of Gen AI. And as a result of that, we felt a call to action. And that call to action has become the Regenerative AI program, which we launched just over a year ago. And the program is all about empowering 1 million people, as you said, 1 million people over 3 years from underserved communities, and equipping them with the tools and the skills to succeed in a digital world and powered by AI. So those are some very big words and very big numbers, but actually, what does that actually mean? We are targeting people in various stages of their lives. So people that are in communities needing help with just getting online, or people that are in school, so students that are in school and wanting to look for potential different pathways into kind of tech careers. Or it might be people that are in work or looking for work and are looking for that next change or that next opportunity for them. And the support that we provide is across data and devices for those in communities, through to doing some really awesome transformative work in schools, which is where our involvement and engagement with TechSheCan comes in. So we help communities across the breadth of kind of life, education, and work, and we really want to make that system shifting change in the country to really help empower and engage underserved communities up and down the country.
Amazing, absolutely, and so much needed to kind of close that digital inclusion gap, the digital skills gap that we've got. So Claire, where does TechSheCan come into this, and how does that align with your particular mission?
Of course, yeah. So TechSheCan, we are the UK's tech careers inspiration and careers experiences and social mobility charity. And our mission really is to make technology work for all. So to make it be, you know, technology, tools, products and services built by everybody, so they reflect everybody, and they're inclusive by design. Which means ultimately increasing the number of women and girls that are intentionally pursuing and being retained in technology roles. So really, we're focused on a couple of things: solving the critical tech skills or the tech talent gap, because that's urgent and needed, and also building these products, tools and services, these technologies that work for everybody, which just means better business, basically. And to solve these two things, we really feel like a long-term view is needed. This is not a quick fix. And we need to build a healthy pipeline of boys and girls that ultimately become these technology creators of the future. So we intentionally start young. We start from age 5 years, which is different to some others working in this space. And it's that sustained commitment to the pipeline that we really think is needed. We talk a lot internally about not just the critical tech skills gap, but also the inspiration gap and the aspiration gap across the UK. And in terms of the business need, so the demand side, we see that, you know, that 1 in 4 women, 1 in 4 workers in technology roles are women, drops to 1 in 10 at leadership level, and that's technology roles generally. But then when you look at AI roles, obviously it's very different, it's much worse. So as a charity, we're all about equipping children's teachers, parents, general public to be able to aspire to pursue technology roles, but also to access them and know how to access them. And we work at that kind of the interesting interface between education with the school's age, policy and industry. So we're fully funded by our industry partners, of which Accenture is one of our key strategic partners. So we've got 250 partners across 40 sectors. So it's not just a tech sector issue. And essentially what we do is we show boys and girls that technology roles are, one, they can be for social good, and two, they are inherently creative, because we know that particularly for girls, they're career drivers for them personally. They want to do something creative and they want to change the world for the better. Hence they end up in, doctors, vets, nurses type roles. So we start young. And we show boys, girls, teachers and parents that there are these relatable tech role models, predominantly women. We show them early stage career, and we deliver and create modern, inclusive, industry relevant careers experiences. It's really about belonging. We're now in our 4th year as a charity. We've reached 650,000 children globally online, but directly, so with our in-person work that we do, delivered by the core team, 140,000 directly across the UK. We've delivered something like 17 career insight days, I think now, where this is the work that we do that is very much focused on depth and really transforming an individual's experience and their aspirations. So we bring in inviting maybe 100 secondary school age girls physically into a workplace like an Accenture office. They spend a day there, and we've delivered these 17 career insight days with 8 partners, reaching about 500 girls. And that's just one of the things we do. We do many others. And really everything we do has a social mobility lens to really work with the children that need us the most. And we do this by prioritising work in education investment areas and areas with high percentage free school meals, etc.
Yeah, I think the work that you do is incredible. For any of you watching this, you can become a Tech She Can ambassador, and you can go into schools and help Tech She Can to achieve their mission. I'll put the website at the end of it, but I think it's absolutely incredible. And watching you grow as a charity in terms of what you've done and what you've achieved between you and Sheridan Ash, absolutely amazing, and the wider team, of course. So back to Dow, why is it so important that, like the partners that Claire relates to, why is it so important that Accenture is involved in these activities? That's some of the ones that Claire's mentioned.
Well, I think that first off, I'll say it's an absolute pleasure working with Claire and the team at Tech She Can. If there were a way to show kind of a blueprint of how kind of a large corporate and a charity work together in a program with a joint vision and a joint strategy and outcome, I think this is a really good blueprint for it, because I love working with Tech She Can, and I know so many of my colleagues do. One of the things that we can always trust with Tech She Can delivery is that Tech She Can are going into the schools and the communities where the help is really needed the most. And that's something that when you are kind of looking at corporate grants and corporate giving, you have to think very critically about which charities you award those grants to and who you work directly with. Because in some cases where there is a certain level of privilege and engagement and mobility already there, social mobility already there, those interventions can, by definition, be easier to do, and therefore the numbers are higher. And actually, Tech She Can faces into the problem areas, the difficult, the difficult and the challenging situations and circumstances. And that is one thing that I absolutely love working with Tech She Can with, is because we know we have this guarantee of the end users. So the children going through these programs are the children that really need the help the most and really need that kind of engagement and support the most. The other thing I'll say is scale as well. So they have the scale to deliver like across the country, and in very high numbers. The numbers that Claire has just mentioned in terms of numbers of interventions online and in person. Again, when we are looking at kind of corporate giving and corporate program delivery, there is always a return on investment, and there's always a concept of being able to get bang for buck in terms of that return being that deep social impact, but also that breadth and depth. And we know that we get that with Tech She Can. And then my final shout out would just be around the Career Insight Days. This is where you kind of go into that deep transformative impact for the individual. And I think this is one of the most powerful things, because this is all about seeing and believing. And how transformative, how amazing to get school children into the workplace, to be able to have a look and feel for like what this could look like, and to really build that aspiration, the sense of aspiration for that young person. And then my final point would be around people engagement. So as you mentioned, Vanessa, TechShe can have lots of vehicles to be able to get involved, and we have a huge workforce in the UK. Many people interested in volunteering their time. We also give our people 3 days of volunteering time in the UK paid. So we have lots of opportunities for our people to get involved, and TechShe can one of the charities that really make it quite frictionless and easy to kind of slot into, say, existing activities, so that our people can really get involved and get engaged in social impact work, which is hugely important to our people.
Yeah, and I think what's really important is that you do reach those far-flung areas of the UK, because often you find schools in London will align with a certain local organisation and they get lots of things, there's lots of kind of privilege, but you've got some people perhaps in the north of England that are just not getting the exposure to the role models that they need, the opportunities and stuff like this. So joint programmes like this, where it's powered by Accenture but delivered by TechShe Can, I think is so important. So let's just go back a little bit, because obviously this huge conversation around AI, it's moving and accelerating so quickly. It's the hot topic. I mean, even on One Tech World, we have a whole stage dedicated to AI this year. Do you think, like, how important is that to society, Dal? And why is it, is these joint collaborations that we do so important to get everyone up to speed of kind of what AI is, what it can do, but also the pitfalls and the ethics around that as well?
Yeah, I think that there's like the economic case, and there's absolutely the social case as well. Accenture did some research about a year ago around the economic case around generative AI in the UK, and estimate that it's something like £700 billion of economic value is at stake from generative AI by 2038. So that's a huge amount of economic value. And there is an opportunity here to democratize that value, and to democratize access to the tech pathways, so that people can harness the power of Gen AI, whether that's in helping them to kind of build their aspiration, build their careers, and moving forward and building and transforming their lives. I think that there is, as I mentioned before, the risk around those that are at a disadvantage being put at a further disadvantage at the advent of Gen AI. So I do think, aside from the social mobility case and the economic case, there's also a moral case, and there's a moral imperative that we kind of always keep in mind. And I think it's one of the reasons I love our collaboration with TechShe Can, is keeping that in mind and keeping that at the forefront of what we do and why we're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next for your collaboration? Obviously, we're in 2025. Tell me what's coming next.
Yeah, there's so much. Vanessa, your last point as well around, like, why the need to focus on this and raise national levels of AI literacy. I was just going to add that, like, for us, it's really simple. AI is shaping and recreating our world, but who's shaping AI? Who's creating AI? And that's the bit that, we want to make sure that, like, everybody is involved in that stage. And the adoption, the regulation, the rollout, all of that needs to be considered by everybody. And all of society needs to be reflected. And on your point around the need, just briefly, there's some schools we work with, and they'll say, we'll invite students in for Career Insight Days, and they'll say, well, we haven't had a visit, we haven't had an enrichment experience or a school trip or anybody come into school since COVID, 4 or 5 years ago. Other children we work with, they'll say, "What, Miss, you mean Google isn't just a box on a screen?" And we're like, no, no, it's not. It's a huge organization, and there are others like that, and you could work with them and for them. And then more recently, we did a Career Insight Day in Manchester, and some of the girls, you know, they live in 20 minutes outside of that city centre, from the wider Manchester region. They'd never been into their city centre before, and they're secondary school age. And some of them had never been in a lift before. And these are the children that in not many years will be expecting or hoping that they join our technology pipeline and start to create technology tools and products and services like Frontier AI. But they're never going to do that if they don't know that this is even an option for them. So yeah, on the need, we really do try and reach those that need us the most. And to your point, your question around what next. So it was around a year ago now. Yeah, it was a year ago. I was with Shaheen, Accenture and Dow and many others at their annual client event at the Roundhouse in London, which was fantastic. So for International Women's Day, they did this great event on AI for their clients. And I said to Shaheen and the team at the time, this is fab, but there's so many school children around here that just don't know this is happening, and they will never hear from these main stage speakers. They don't know this is an option. Fast forward a year, and on the 7th of March, we will, so by the time this podcast has gone out, we would have hosted our first Girls in AI Summit with Accenture. So this is in Manchester. Amazing. 240 girls from 8 schools in the Greater Manchester region, Year 8 secondary school, at no cost to the schools at all. And it'll be a real mix of main stage speakers, industry leaders, OpenAI, NVIDIA, DeepMind, Mindstone, etc., but also interactive zones, so they get to hear from and speak to people like Dow and many others from Accenture and other organizations in these interactive festival zones with tech demos and stuff as well. So a real mix, but that's just one of the things. We did a live assembly. These are our virtual live assemblies that we do all the time. We did one last year with Accenture on generative AI, and we reached 40,000 children in one morning. With that. We have since smashed that, but with this year's Safer Internet Day. But coming up soon, we've got our Tech for Sustainable AI live assembly launching, a secondary one and a primary one. Yeah, so lots happening with Accenture.
Fantastic. And you're right. I mean, just I've gone to events before and I speak a lot in schools, and just sometimes you just see the spark go off in that child that, oh my God, this is an opportunity for me, or they've aligned with the person that's talking to them, thinking, oh, we're from a similar background. If they can do it, I can do it. So those touch points are so important. So absolutely applaud both of your organisations for closing that skills gap and showing these kids what is achievable. So yeah, it's been absolutely amazing to talk to you. And again, just to remind you, if you want to find out about the work of TechSheCan, you can visit the website, you can be an ambassador, you can go and teach in schools. You too can change the life of some of these girls and young boys as well. So thank you very much for joining me. It's been awesome.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thanks for having us, Vanessa.